Welcome to lesson 2 of my new business playbook YouTube video shenanigans here. I will warn you now, this one's going to be a little long, and that's because we have sort of 2 parts to this, and I need to set it up by explaining a couple of things first. So I've been doing this blog where I interview people. I call it the Ripple Maker blog, and I've been interviewing entrepreneurial-minded people kind of about their work, but not really focusing on their work. What I've been focusing on are them, the human behind the work, because I think that a lot of times when we're looking for services in whatever it is, we're focused on what we need. And a lot of times it's just as important to know the person, because the relationship in the end is what really matters. And if you think about it, the people you trust the most are the people that you have the deepest connection to. You feel good about the relationship with that person, and you'll almost follow them no matter what kind of work that they do. We found this in Questor's Way. We had a lot of students who they would look for the teacher, and it really didn't matter what that teacher was teaching. They just really liked that teacher, and they found it was fun to learn different things from that person. So that's kind of where we're starting here. So I'm going to have 3 questions for you. But before we talk about those 3 questions, we have to think about, first of all, use my 3x5 card, your story makes your work unique. And I remember having a little bit of a hard time with this. There are lots of people doing even what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm kind of somehow found myself in this place of coaching entrepreneurs. I've always done a lot of mentoring and stuff like that, but this is a more like people are paying me to give them business advice. And I'm like, who the heck am I? I am not the most successful business person out there. But then again, I've done some pretty cool things, right? So I have this little battle. I'm sure a lot of you have faced it with imposter syndrome, where, it can be difficult to feel that you should be raising your voice in this way. And when I talk to the people who are doing really cool things, they all have some feeling of this. And the thing that we end up having a conversation around that often, it's kind of funny, it's led to tears at times, because as they're going through these 3 questions, at the end of it, there's this recognition that, they have a unique value. Even if they're doing the same thing as other people, the way it's coming out is unique to them. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So your story makes your work unique. That's the first thing to come away with. The second thing, we started using Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey quite a ways back. And it's a really, really great sort of lens to look at this process through. So think about it this way. You've been on multiple hero's journeys in your life, right? You were taken through a trial, and in the process of going through that trial, you chose to answer the call. And this is something I find very common, especially with people who were in some corporate setting and there was some kind of trial or adversity or difficulty. Maybe they faced a health thing, maybe they got laid off, maybe they had to disconnect and got fired, or they just got frustrated with the way things were. So they answered that call and they decided that they were going to do something about it. They didn't just go home and lick their wounds and complain. Maybe they did that for a while. I know I've done that. But on the other side of it, they stepped up, right? So you go through this process of answering the call. You have a trial that you face. And on the other side of that, you now have experiential wisdom and a foot in both worlds. So what I mean by that is, I'm sure you can think about this. You've faced some kind of challenge. I've talked to people with health challenges, and they battled with maybe cancer or something like that and survived it. So on the other side of that, they've navigated a difficulty that puts them in a unique place of understanding other people who've gone through it, but also understanding how to be an effective guide for people who haven't gone through it and are going to be going through it. So that's what I mean by a foot in both worlds. Your experiences have given you a unique perspective. So the idea behind these 3 questions that we're going to be talking about is for you to recognize that as you're answering them, the idea is to connect to your hero's journey and why, even though the work may feel very generic. There may be tons and tons of people doing exactly what you do. They're not you. They haven't lived your life, and they haven't experienced it in the way that you have. So it is unique. And don't sell yourself short. You know, when you have the doubts, you go back to these questions. And if you do a little work, maybe some journaling with it, maybe even talk to people about how they would answer these questions with you, it might reveal some deeper layers of insight that can be incredibly impactful on your business long-term in all the ways that matter. Because remember, this is all about clarifying value. That's what we're focusing on right now. So what better way to clarify your value than clarify who you are and why that value is being expressed through you in a way that only you can, okay? So 3 questions. First question is this: where are you from and how did you end up where you are now? And when I ask clients this, we go really deep on it. But for you, as you're answering this question, the one thing I want you to think about as you're going through the process of thinking this through, it's relative specifically to your work. A lot of times people get distracted by parts of their story that are part of your experience. And yes, they may be related in some way, but we want to get really clear and focus in on what part of your hero's journey specifically is impacting the thing that you're doing right now, right? So that's the first question. So, and these are a progression. So take a little bit of time to think through how you would answer that first question before you move to the second one, okay? So with that being said, here's the second question. So the second question is, who do you feel called to be? And how is that reflected in your work? And this one makes me think a lot of Gay Hendricks. He wrote a book called The Big Leap. By the way, I love books. I made a commitment back in the early 90s to read, as best I could, 50 books a year between audio and physical books. So I'll give lots of book recommendations probably as we go through this whole thing, because there are some smart people out there. And it's always been incredibly helpful to me to sponge up as much of their knowledge and then figure out how I could apply it in whatever business or adventure that I'm currently on. So, you know, who do you feel called to be and how is that reflected in your work? Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, he talked about the zone of the zone of excellence. And the zone of excellence is this place where we have a skill that other people value, right? And we value it too, but it's something we're good at. And often our work ends up almost trapping us in that place because we're good at it. We can get paid, we're dependable, it's consistent, it's predictable. It can be a great way to make a living. I'm not downplaying it, but his point was a lot of times we end up self-sabotaging or limiting ourselves when we stay in the zone of excellence. And we need to jump over into what he calls the zone of genius. And the zone of genius is where you have this intersection where you're not only good at it, you're passionate about it. It's the type of thing you would do for free. You know, it's that level. So when you're answering this question, the idea is when you couple together who you feel called to be, like, you know, in the end, I just, the part of me that believes in you, that wants to see, I love seeing you rise up and do incredible things that create ripples on the entire world. I just want to, I've always just, I don't care what I'm doing as long as I'm helping people do that. And a lot of times it's like teaching teachers or, you know, doing my part to contribute and support entrepreneurs, right? Like you. So it's who do you feel called to be? What's that compelling, passionate thing? And how is that reflected in your work? If it isn't, that's something that you should look at because it's not going to be as fulfilling. And it should. Like, you know, I'm doing these videos with 3x5 cards and I went through this whole thing thinking I should have like a thumbnail. So it's not me making some weird face at the beginning of the video. And it's like, you know what? That's not me. I just talk to people and I like talking to people and I get charged up. And I'm excited right now, in spite of myself, doing these videos because I'm imagining you, right? And that's what gives value to me. So, you know, that's how it's the me who I feel called to be is a person that teaches teachers, that teaches entrepreneurs, and that's being reflected in the work I'm doing, my approach to making these videos right now. So this is just me. If you had a conversation with me, it would be exactly like this rambling video is right now. Okay, so that's the second question. So how do those things connect for you? And then the third thing is, and this is the one that usually gets people, this is the one that in the interviews I've done with entrepreneurs, 50% of the time this leads to at least tearing up, if not actual crying. And I'll explain why afterwards. So the question is, when you think about the people you can help through your work, what is your dream for them? What is your dream for them? And my mentor used to talk about the unbendable arm. And it was this idea of looking over the horizon, seeing beyond the immediate. And there's an incredible amount of power in that. So when I'd ask people this question, it would pierce through all the difficulties of, stubborn clients that they couldn't help, or the challenges of running their business. All the stuff would go away, and they're imagining the purity of, if they could change someone's life in the way they feel capable of, what would that look like? And it just really, really connects them to their true work, the magic that's in their true work, the hero that they are when they pick up that sword to go, defend whatever it is that they needed to defend, or champion whatever cause they needed to champion. So when you're asking that question, the idea is to just strip all the barriers out and imagine at the end of your time with whoever's life you're seeking to change, if it all worked exactly the way that you wanted it to work, what would that mean to them? What's your dream for them? So it's not about what it means for you. It's a huge part of the work that I do is focused on being learner-centered, being human-centered. So we're part of the process, but it's kind of letting go of the value that we're creating for ourselves, trusting that that will happen anyway, and focusing intensely on what's happening for the people that we're choosing to serve. So that's the third question. So I'll say the three questions in a row so you have them just back to back in case you need them, and then we will end this very long video. I warned you it was going to be a long one. So first question, where are you from and how did you end up where you are now? Second question, who do you feel called to be and how is that reflected in your work? And then the third and final question, when you think about the people you can help through your work, what is your dream for them? I'll leave you with that, and we'll see you in the next lesson.